Live. In this live, we're going to be talking about work-life balance, or the balance between being a mom and also owning a business. This has been a very requested subject. I know a lot of you who are watching right now, you may have children, you may be planning for children, you may take care of kids, and you may just be curious about what that looks like to balance both at the same time. But as always, go ahead and share where you're watching from. Um, I love seeing all the different places that y'all are watching from. So go ahead and share that in the chat. And I know we're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook in the Facebook group, and we're live on Instagram. So give me 1 second to pin my comment. Let's see, live on YouTube. Link in bio. Okay, let me go ahead and pin this. Welcome, welcome. And go ahead again and share where you're watching from. And I'd love to hear from you and know if you are curious about the subject or if you're a parent. So you don't have to be a mom to relate to this. You could just be a parent, you could be a father. So as people come in, I'm actually just going to jump right into the subject. This is a subject that I wanted to take my time with responding to. I did write a few notes about what I wanted to touch on, but I really want this to be an open conversation, and I don't want to rush it at all. I want to be thorough because this is something I think about a lot, which is work-life balance, balancing motherhood, and I want to dive deep into this subject and be as transparent as possible and as real as possible and authentic as possible having this discussion. I'm seeing Seattle, Washington. Welcome in. All right, where are y'all watching from? I'd love to know. Hello, I see some people over on YouTube. All right, so we are talking about balancing motherhood with business, and I want to know, number one, where are you watching from? Number two, how does this subject relate to you? I do want to give you an overview of some of the things I want to get into. Oh, but first, let me introduce myself. Forgot to do that. My name's Ayana. I'm a licensed massage therapist. I'm also a spa owner and esthetician. Been in this industry since 2015, and I make videos about business strategy for spa professionals. So my whole thing is empowering spa professionals to up-level their businesses and to start their businesses. So I work with people from beginners to people who are growing their team. So that's just a little bit about me. So just to give you an overall outline of what we're going to be talking about. And before I do that, let me just shout some people out. I'm seeing NYC, New York City. I'm seeing mom of 3 expecting in school to be an LMT. That's so exciting. Seeing New Jersey starting LMT school part-time in March. That's so exciting. So I do see some mothers in the chat, so that's great. And I'm sure those of you who will watch this replay, some of you are parents, so go ahead and comment that if you're watching the replay. But here is kind of the outline of where I want to go. So I want to share a little bit more about myself and how I relate to this subject, kind of just my thoughts on parenthood, like what I was thinking, even before I had the business, like what's my story and how I relate to this. So I'm going to dive deep into that. And I also want to talk about some of the fears or negative emotions that can come from parenthood and how that can affect you on a personal level, how that can affect your career, how that can affect you professionally, and also how that can affect your relationships. That's also very important. And then I want to talk about some of the values that came up for me as I was navigating motherhood, as I was navigating even marriage and like just life and relationships and all that good stuff while building my business, starting and growing my business, and starting other businesses on top of that. So really getting into the entrepreneurship, just weeds of it all. And then also sharing like practical tips if you are considering, looking at your work-life balance. And if you are right now or going to be planning to balance both. So balancing your business and balancing being a mom or a parent or a father. And then I'm also going to share just ways that even just having my business, I think has made me a better parent, or ways that I think about it. So that's kind of where I'm going to go. I'm probably going to share a couple stories along the way and just really take my time diving into this subject, because again, I get this question a lot, like how are you doing it? I know some of you are planning your family, or some of you already have your family and now you're thinking about starting the business and you want to know what to expect. So if that's you, then this is exactly the right place. You're in the right place. I'm seeing more people from NYC. That's awesome. Yes, as always, when you come in, feel free to share where you're watching from, because I love to see that. All right, so let's see. So in the beginning, so just sharing some of my thoughts. So again, even if you're not in the season of having children right now, you can probably relate to the feeling of wearing many, many hats, or being pulled in different directions, or just having so many different things competing for your time. So if you're not a mother, you're not planning for motherhood, this is how I felt. This is just another feeling that you can relate to, because it does a lot of concepts of like time management, or feeling like you need more time, pop up when you are navigating parenthood in addition to running your business. All right, so and then also, side note, on YouTube, let me know, as always, if any of the audio is off or the video is off. Just let me know. Same on Instagram. And I'm going to answer some of these questions real quick before I dive into this. Did you massage while you were pregnant? That's where I'm nervous about starting my own practice right now. I did. I did. To be honest, I really didn't have to, but I did anyways, because it gave me a sense of normalcy. It gave me a sense of fulfillment to do that. And honestly, it kept me on the move, because at that time I was mobile. I was only mobile. There was no space. But I did realize that I was kind of pushing myself a little bit too much at a certain point, because when you're mobile, you are going upstairs. You're going, up to, apartments, a couple flights, and that eventually became too much, and I decided to just rest. So short answer, yes, I did do that while I'm pregnant. And I know plenty of people who do massage while they're pregnant, and it's totally fine. And then for others, maybe that's pushing yourself too much. And I'm seeing more people who are licensed massage therapists and moms in the chat here. Welcome, welcome. Did you protect your body while massaging how did you protect your body while massaging during pregnancy? So no one prepares you for pregnancy and what you can expect, or what how your body speaks to you differently when you're pregnant. When you're pregnant, your body, at least from my experience, everything I'm going to be sharing is from my own experience. But for me, my body started speaking louder and louder and louder, like as it was, progressing. And so how did I protect my body? Really, I think I protected it by staying active, but trying not to be too active, really learning what my limits were. So once I started to feel overwhelmed with the physical duress of, for example, doing mobile appointments, I listened to that, and I had to make plans to cut that out altogether and just rest. So I think that is how. And another way I protected my body was stretching often. I do remember swimming a lot. They say that's really good for you when you are pregnant, is swimming, because it's very easy on the joints. So for me, protection meant maintenance. So maintenance of my body, making sure that I was still using my muscles, but also being cognizant of not overusing my muscles and paying attention to my limits, because I had just never been in that space before where, my limits began to get shorter. I'm seeing in the chat, thank you for doing this live. I've been looking for videos on massage while having kids. Yes, so we're diving deep. I'm going to share things that I've never shared before in this live. So again, even if you're not in the season of having children right now, you could probably relate to having difficulties with time management or just feeling like you are pulled in so many different directions. And that is essentially how I felt, especially in the beginning. Now, let's rewind, let's go back. So I always knew at some point in life that I would go down the route of, having children or having a family. Didn't know what that would look like. And when it did happen, when I did realize that I would be having a family, it happened a lot sooner than I thought. Like I thought that it would be later in life, but it happened, earlier in life when I thought that I was just so mature, just so such an adult. And I've never really shared my age on any platform, but when I had my child, it was right before, I want to say, my 25th birthday. And my husband is older than I am and is like pretty much mid 30s. And so he was already ready for me. It brought up, it says pause support. Okay, we're reconnected. But for me, it just made me realize, it made me look at time so much differently. I realized at that time just how young I was at that time. It was very, very, very difficult trying to reconcile with the fact that I kept having feelings of, this might be too soon. Maybe there are other things I want to do, because I was starting to think that because I was becoming a mother, that it would mean that so many other things would have to come to an end. And even for a moment, I thought that even my business would have to come to an end, because I had never seen that done before, seeing someone have a business and still be pregnant and run it and all that stuff. So I had just never seen that before. Let me know on Instagram if y'all can still hear me, because it looks a little paused. I'm just going to keep going. But yeah, so that is kind of a little backstory of like some thoughts and feelings that I was having at that time. And then also another thing is that I had to go through a mental, spiritual, and technically physical. That's like the biggest transition you can go through is pregnancy. I had to go through a huge just transition, because if you think about it, becoming a mother, especially if you're going 0 to 1, it's just totally different than if you're going 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 children. That's a huge transition, especially, I was in, I guess you could say mid-20s when that happened. And so I just had to change like my whole mindset of what I thought life was. And there was a lot of resistance to it, because it's like the maiden becoming the mother. And that is just a huge transition, and really, some might even say rite of passage in a woman's life or someone's life. So that was very difficult to reconcile with, especially having uncertainty. You never know. When you're pregnant, there's just so much uncertainty. You don't know what you're really signing up for. And even if you are the most prepared, you're never really prepared to have children. And honestly, even everything I'm saying right now about that transition to becoming a mother, you could say similar things about becoming a business owner. I see a lot of parallels between starting a business and having a child. For a lot of people, their business is their baby. It's kind of like a creative expression of themselves, especially because it's something that you're starting from scratch, something that you're building up, something that you have to constantly learn at. And I see that parallel between starting a business and, raising a child, starting a family. There's a lot of similarities there for me. Let me know if you agree or if you can relate to that. But yeah, that's how it was for me. So let's fast forward. Actually, let me go back a little bit more. One of the biggest drivers for my business, even the reason I'm speaking to you right now today, and even starting my platform, is that the way I have my business set up, I really had to learn how to make sure it could run without me, because I was very determined to take a very, decent break away from the business after I had my son, and put myself on my own maternity leave and make sure that the business was still running, make sure that my team members can still get paid, even if I was on maternity leave. And so once I realized that I would be becoming a mother, that's when I started hiring more aggressively, making sure I had the right people supporting my business, making sure that they were trained well, making sure they knew what I expected of them, because I knew that I would not be there to be fulfilling appointments or working with my clients. I had to learn to make sure that I was not essentially the face of the business. And that was a challenge because up until this point, all the reviews that we were getting, they were saying my name. They weren't saying the names of my team members. They weren't saying the names of anyone else. And when you are, a one-woman show, like, your reputation, your name is heavily attached to your business. And so I had to learn and figure out, how can I kind of remove myself, but still make sure that the business is running and running well. So not decreasing the quality that my clients were getting, and making sure that my clients felt comfortable being in the hands of someone else. So that was a huge learning curve. Another thing I had to do was make sure that I had systems in place. I had to make sure that I could use, technology to make sure that people were answering the phones like on the first or second ring, or that clients were getting follow-up emails and text messages, making sure that they're showing up to their appointment. I had to make sure so many different things were in place, and I had to document that whole process so that I could train others to do it as well. So there was just so much I was doing at that time. I do want to dive into, things I was doing back then versus things that I'm doing now, because this whole live is really about work-life balance, and it's about things that I've learned after going through that transition of motherhood. So that's kind of where we're going to start. So I had to make sure that the business could run even if I was in the hospital room. And what's interesting, something I'm very, very proud of, something that I'll always be proud of within myself is, even after I had my baby, I'm like still, recovering, I'm in the hospital room, like we were still making sales. Like we were still making sales while I was in the hospital room, bonding with my new child, going through this whole just mind-blowing experience and recovering from that. And I'm not having to answer phone calls. Phone calls were still being made. I'm still seeing notifications of appointments being gone to. And that was such a great feeling. That let me know that all that hard work that I put into systemizing my business, making sure that certain technology was there, making sure I was delegating things. Because up until this point, I was also the one doing payroll. I was the one doing accounting. I was the one doing the marketing. I was the one, following up with clients. And I was the one fulfilling services. Because as I mentioned before, I was still mobile, taking appointments even while I was pregnant. In addition to that, and a lot of people don't know this, is even while I was pregnant, trying to build my business, trying to make sure I had all this set up, before the baby came. I was also in school. I was also in school. I was, we call it 3/4 time. So I wasn't full-time in school. I was 3/4 time in school. What is that? 75%. So not technically full-time, but not part-time either. Doing my prereqs for nursing at that time, because I had already started it, but I had just never finished my prereqs. And I knew, if I ever did want to down the road go into nursing, I should just go ahead and finish this up. I also finished my associate's degree while I was pregnant, right before I had my child. So yeah, the spring before I had my child, because I had him in the summertime of 2021. So I had finished my associate's degree and I finished my prereqs for nursing. Somehow I finished with a 3.9. I don't know how it happened. I know how it happened. I put in the work, but it was just so much. So as you can imagine, at that time, I did not have any work-life balance. I was doing a lot. I was doing a lot. So imagine me working in my business, trying to delegate different tasks because I was the one doing the payroll, the marketing, answering phones, all that stuff. I was also starting up YouTube. So I wasn't that consistent with YouTube, but I was starting to make some content, but I wasn't full on into it. I was also in school and I was pregnant and just trying to keep my head above water, and also just going through just the mental turmoil of getting myself prepared for this big life change. So even though, because another thing that I'll mention is, I talk about how I wasn't really prepared for that transition from maiden to mother, even though I'm like a full-blown adult. Like, I'm still in the mindset of, if you're pregnant, that means, that's not necessarily a good thing. Like, we're now transitioning into that part of adulthood where this is really something to celebrate. This is really something to be proud of, something to really bask in, the fact that you're with child and starting a family. But I was kind of still in that kind of, I won't say immature mindset, but just a younger mindset of, if you get pregnant, it's like, it's just this whole thing. Even though I'm engaged, I'm living with my partner, like all that stuff, preparing for a wedding, I was still in that mindset and still in a way kind of secretive about being pregnant for a very, very long time, because I was still going through that mental transition of not really understanding like what my life was about to be, and also having the realization that, wow, there are still a lot of things that I haven't really done yet that I would like to do, but now I'm going through this whole transition. So in addition to, your brain really does change when you have a child, like how you think before, it just changes. I feel like something in the chemicals, I'm not a doctor. I don't have any statistics pulled up or any research pulled up. But those of you who have gone through motherhood before, you know that your beliefs may change. The things that you cared about before may change. Your priorities and values may change. And the things that you used to do, you just realize that you just don't want to be a part of anymore. So that is what I was going through. So I want to move into, okay, so I had my baby, the business is running. Now I'm getting on YouTube, trying to show people that this is possible, trying to show people like, hey, you can, set certain things up to where your business can run essentially without you, or you just show up to your sessions, or you can hire people to run your business, like trying to just show the journey. I do remember filming a couple of pregnant vlogs, and I should have posted them. I never posted them because, again, I was still in that mindset of when you're pregnant, like, this is kind of like a secretive thing. You don't like share it, or it's not, something to be loud about, which now I believe that's the furthest from the truth, the mindset that I'm in now that I have more life experience. But yeah, so I never really shared that on YouTube. Maybe I should have posted them. I still could. I could like dig them up and post those. So let me know if you would want to see that. A vlog that I filmed when I was pregnant and taking appointments and, meeting up with team members. I kind of just archived it, but I could probably share that if that's something that you are interested in. So I'm trying to set the scene. So after having the child and putting myself on maternity leave, meaning that enough money is coming in to where I can pay myself, I can feel good about taking a break from the business. I've delegated certain things. At this point, I have a virtual assistant who is helping me answer phone calls. I've hired my accountant to make sure that payroll is going out on time. And the most that I need to do is just connect with my team members and make sure that they still feel valued. They still feel like they know what's going on, and make sure that they're still happy going to their appointments and doing things like that. And then, of course, I believe I was still in charge of certain things that came to marketing, because I didn't have any marketing assistants at that time, but very little was needed from me in the business. But even after that, even after having my son and after resting for a little bit, something about me at that time, I just can't sit still. I constantly feel like I have to keep going and achieving. And at that time, and just being honest, I felt like I had to keep doing something professionally. So I had just got my associate's degree, just finished my prereqs, just had my son, just launched my business, started being more active on YouTube. And then I decided that I can't sit still. I have to move on to the next project, which is starting my coaching program and creating SpaBizSuccess and creating kind of the first iteration of that, because I started to get questions on Instagram, I started to get questions on YouTube, and I started to get messages saying that I should create some type of course teaching people how to start their business, how to hire a team, how to get started with their spa business. And to me, that seemed like the perfect project because I felt like, okay, I achieved this thing, which is making sure that the business can run without me. I have my son, I'm on maternity leave, I'm paying myself. I want to show people how to do this too. And also, in addition to that, that can be another revenue stream in case I ever, let's say, have another child or go in a different direction. It's just always good to have multiple streams of income. I'm seeing in the comment, girl, where did you find the energy? You know what? I don't know. I think it's how I'm wired, and honest, if I can be like completely like transparent and honest, I think it has something to do with trauma and trying to understand myself, because I just constantly have to keep going. Even after having my child, it was very difficult for me to just rest and just relax and just let, my husband take care of things. And I'm super blessed because he's so hands-on, and just everything that I can do as a mom, he can do as a father, whether that's changing diapers or feeding or, going on stroller walks, making meals, like all that stuff, cleaning. He does it as well. So that's something that I know not a lot of people have, that type of support, but there's just something about me, especially at that time, that felt guilty about having rest, felt guilty about having just genuine rest and relaxation, which seems so ironic being in the spa industry and being a massage therapist and esthetician, where my job is to really help people relax and feel better about themselves. But for me, that was just so difficult. I'll never forget, like, after after having my child and going on a walk, because I felt like I need to exercise. I can't just be like laying in the bed, like going on a walk and regretting it later because it actually hurt me. Like, it hurt me to just go on that little walk, and I just didn't understand so many things at that time. But yeah, so that is where I was at that time. And now I want to dive into some of the kind of negative paradigms that can happen after you have your child, and then how we can reverse that. And then I want to get into some of the values that I established after, going into parenthood in addition to entrepreneurship. So some of the negative paradigms that can happen, or the negative limiting beliefs, sometimes they're put on us from society. Sometimes they're put on us through the people who are around us. Sometimes they come from within, so they're internalized. Sometimes it's all three. And one of them is definitely mom guilt. So definitely write in the chat, because I have to, I have to know I'm not the only one, but experiencing mom guilt. And I actually have a definition over here of what that is for those of you who may not have experienced this yet. And not everyone will get it. I do remember explaining this concept to a man, and he was like, no, there's only guilt. There's no such thing as mom guilt. Just because you're a mom, you can't, all that stuff. Not true. So this is a whole phenomenon. So mom guilt is the feeling or worry that you should be doing more, or that you're not a good enough mom. Mom guilt can spring out of comparison, the feeling of inadequacy that creeps in. For example, when you see other moms doing things that you're not doing, that you think you should be doing because it could make you a good mom. That is essentially the concept of mom guilt. And a lot of that can happen when you are working on your career or your profession or even your education, while you are a parent. Unfortunately, that is something that can happen, whether it's enforced on you from society or because you've enforced it upon yourself because of whatever beliefs you may have about yourself. So this is something that I experienced, especially when I was still building SpaBizSuccess while having, a newborn. It's something that I experienced even when I went on my honeymoon after having, my baby. I experienced it a lot then. It happened a lot when, even breastfeeding didn't go the way that I expected. I mean, it was a great experience. It just wasn't the picture perfect thing that I expected, because who prepares you for something like that when you've never done it before, or know other people who do it? Especially at this phase of life that I was in where, a lot of my friends did not have children. I was kind of the main one who did, or even like my family members. I don't, have a lot of women family members in my life. And so there were just certain things that I did not know that I had to learn on my own. So I definitely experienced mom guilt in different scenarios while building other aspects of my business, while trying to get back into my business and deciding when I will go back to taking appointments again, and things like that. And then also trying to determine when I would be healed enough to go back to work and take appointments and feel fulfilled in that way. One of the things that we can do about mom guilt, because I don't want to just talk about the problem, I do want to talk about some solutions. Well, number one is having conversations like these. So openly talking about these different aspects of motherhood and how it intertwines with your career, your profession, your business, your creative endeavors, your lifestyle, your relationships, your mental health, and just having conversations like these and being honest, because I think there's a lot of conversations about motherhood or even parenthood, fatherhood, that paint it as this picturesque thing that everyone needs to go through at some point in their life. And it just doesn't always happen like that. And I think it's very inauthentic to make it seem like that is like there is only a certain way to have your family, run your family, or even run your business while you are a parent. Another thing that we can do about this mom guilt or this parent guilt, because I know that fathers experience this as well, just in a different way, is by being around supportive people. So not internalizing the judgment that you will inevitably have from other people, whether that be your family members, your friends, about what you should or should not be doing while you're a mom. We all saw what happened with Kiki Pomer. We don't have to talk about it. We don't have to get into that. But we saw what happened with that, where, you see this woman being judged by her actions because just by the mere fact that she has a child at home. And there's that in itself could be controversial to discuss, and there's other aspects of it too. I don't think it's just because she was a mom, but that is just an example of how society can place you into certain boxes, and you can internalize that and start to feel bad or start to feel worried about your choices now that you have a child and you also have a career or an education that you care about. Another thing, and I don't see this talked about a lot, but I have a feeling I'm not the only one, but I'm just going to share because it could help someone else who is watching this. So another negative paradigm that we can get into when we have our children while also trying to develop our careers or business is a feeling of embarrassment. So feeling maybe judged by others, whether that is perceived, so just a perception you may have, not necessarily that it's true, that there's like true judgment from someone else, but kind of an internalized judgment that we have about ourselves. So I experienced this when I was, let's say, looking for a new space. So I was looking to expand my business. I was looking for an actual space because up until this time I had only been mobile, but I knew we could expand our services and expand our team if we had a physical location, and something in my vision told me that this was the next step for the spa. to have a physical location. And when I was like touring these different places, I had to take my baby with me because during this time, I'm still a stay-at-home mom. Maybe not by society standards because I was still running my business, but I was still at home with the baby. I did not put him in daycare until much, much later. And he was still of course, my responsibility throughout the day. And so I would take him to meetings. I would go into virtual or in-person meetings while he was with me. So, I'm having to trying to navigate, what if he cries? What if what if I have to change a diaper while I'm in the middle of, meeting this person or going into a business meeting, and just so many different scenarios. And yeah, so that was very hard to reconcile with as well, knowing that, I'm this young mother, like going into meetings and stuff, and I have a child and I'm trying to be professional, and it may not be considered professional, again, by different standards when you bring your child with you to work or to a business setting, things like that. So that was an interesting thing to navigate. Just looking here at the comments, I see someone said, Charisma Renee said, I do want to do more than just massage, but I don't know how that would look like with 4 kids. Currently, I'm in school and too tired for extra activities with my kiddos. And that is totally valid. Like it can be a lot to, be a parent, because that is a full-time job. Having 1 child is a full-time job. Having 4 children is 4 full-time jobs. It is an entire thing. And I feel like it's fair to wonder what your life would look like if you are a parent while also running your business. Same for fathers. There's a lot of fathers out there who don't understand what that would look like. It's a little bit different because naturally most of the responsibility tends to fall on us as women when it comes to caretaking and even other household things. Kind of depends on your outlook and what you believe and so many different other things, but that is totally valid. And I'm going to get into some ways that we can really work to achieve some sort of balance, because that's what this is about, is finding some type of balance. So after having my child and running this business and starting another business in addition to that in the education space, from teaching and coaching and consulting, while also trying to create content, realizing that I am a content creator on top of all this other stuff. I did not intend for it to be that way, but that's how it kind of ended up in my journey. And so I had to reevaluate some of my values, because I do not want to be a part of mom guilt. I don't want to be a part of, embarrassment or feeling overwhelmed by all of these different responsibilities, in addition to really trying to reconcile this transition from maiden to mother, because again, that was just a very difficult transition for me. It's like, oh wow, now I'm really, really an adult. And then throw marriage in the mix, and that is just a whole nother ball game. But yeah, so I had to reevaluate my values, and these are some of the values that I've developed from going through this transition. So the first value, and just to give you the definition, like when I say my values, I mean these are the principles I have to live by, not only for my life and my relationships, but also my business. And I have to make sure that the mission of my business and the way that it's set up can support these values. So I highly recommend looking into your values when you are trying to map out how you're going to be a mother and how you're going to be a business owner. So one of the first ones is freedom/flexibility. So I realized that I value not being on the clock somewhere, not having to do a full shift where I can't leave if I want to, because that does not give me the freedom or flexibility to, for example, pick up my baby from daycare if, he develops a cough or something, or stay home with him if he gets sick, which is inevitable when you have newborn humans coming into the world and developing their immune system. So one of my values is freedom and flexibility. I have to make sure the way that my lifestyle and my business is set up is that I have the freedom to make my own schedule and to be flexible with my schedule. So this does not mean that I don't honor my commitments or honor prior commitments that might be on my calendar, because that can also happen. I know plenty of business owners who they choose to go to that meeting or go to do their client meetings versus, or do their appointments versus maybe show up for their child when they have some type of activity or event. Sometimes that can happen if you have a prior commitment. But I need the freedom and flexibility to change my schedule, to make adjustments in the case of, emergencies, in the case of a sick child, and in the case that, maybe one day I just want to take him to the park and take him out of school and just spend the day with him if I want to, or celebrate a birthday or bake cupcakes for him, that type of thing. And so that, really sticking to that value has paid off a lot. It makes me feel like, okay, I have wiggle room here. Even though I'm working on my business, I do have the ability to change my schedule around to where I can, for example, make sure I cook dinner for him, on a regular schedule, or make sure he has a regular schedule. Now, this was very difficult to create or to stick to, especially when I was just at home. So there's different phases of motherhood and how you set up your life. You have when you're just at home with the baby and it's just you and him or her, and you're at home, you're not working at all. And then you have other phases where, let's say, they're in daycare or they're in school or they're in activities. I saw in the chat, Greece therapist said, keeping my son in different activities helps me. So I can imagine that, because that means he's engaged and you can spend time doing other things that might be beneficial for him or the family or yourself, because that's important too. But freedom and flexibility is a huge value of mine that I have now. Another value that I have, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but that's going to be working smarter, not harder. So that is a huge value. I have to figure out, whether that's in my life or business or even relationships, how I can make sure I'm doing the work and leveraging my time, leveraging money without necessarily doing more. So this could look like making sure all the manual work in my business is eliminated, making sure I can delegate tasks to other people, making sure that I stay in my zone of genius, which is, let's say, teaching others or instructing others or teaching new skills, or doing specialized services. So those, and also identifying what are the things I want to be doing. Is it content creation or is it answering emails? Just making sure I'm not doing like the nitty gritty stuff, but still able to make a good income, still able to push the business forward without doing the most. So that is another value that I have, making sure that things feel easy, even though I'm doing the work and I'm helping people get results, and I'm making sure that services are fulfilled for my clients. The next value, and we're going to dive into this a little bit deeper, is work-life balance. Work-life balance is huge for me now. It really wasn't back then when I was pregnant and I was trying to figure out how I can pull this off, which is making sure my business can run without me. Back then, I would stay up really, really late doing schoolwork, working on the business, researching things, trying to listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos, film YouTube videos. I was just doing so much to where I sacrificed some nights, sleep, or I did not socialize as much, or I just really put my head down, and it was very off balance. At that time, I was very much an all or nothing kind of girl, and now I'm not that way at all. I can't be that way because that's not something I value anymore, because that was at a cost of my own taking care of myself and taking care of, gestating a baby at that time. I learned very quickly, especially the more further along I was in my pregnancy, that I can't do that. I can't do that. And it was still a difficult transition even after having a baby. As I mentioned before, this was during the time where I started to be in the early creation of SpaBizSuccess and, other coaching opportunities and things like that. And I learned very quickly that I just cannot be doing that. I have to get my rest. I have to make sure I get my sleep and still pay attention to my other relationships and, make sure I'm spending enough time with, my husband, the baby, just everyone. So now I value work-life balance. And actually one of my words of the year of 2023 was balance. You will not find me up at 11 p.m. just researching stuff, unless maybe it's an anxious night. Everyone has those once in a while. But for the most part, it can wait until the morning. Just wake up a little bit earlier. One thing I will not do is exhaust my body as well. So even now that I take some appointments, I'm not doing it to where I exhaust my body. So usually I don't work more than 8 hours at the spa. And even that seems like a lot. It seems like a lot. So I have a lot of boundaries on my time now. But, going back to the value of work smarter, not harder, even though I'm doing no more than 8 hours at the spa, we're not trying to sacrifice income, and we're not trying to sacrifice quality either. So I had to figure out, how can I still do less than 8 hours of massage while still making sure everyone can get paid. And really the way that I do that is through having a team, and also other sources of income as well. Another value that I have is creating a lifestyle business. So this is something that I'm learning now. I had never really heard the term lifestyle business until kind of recently, but what this really means is that you build a business that supports your preferred lifestyle. So if you prefer to, let's say, travel a lot, then maybe you become a travel massage therapist or a celebrity massage therapist. That's an example of creating a lifestyle business. Or perhaps one of the ways that you see your lifestyle is being really fit. So perhaps you make it to where you make enough in your business to where you can afford a Pilates membership. That's what I mean by lifestyle business. So I'm still defining, what my preferred lifestyle is and how it aligns with, my family and, where my family where we want to see ourselves in 5-10 years. But I'm still evaluating that and still looking and investing in other avenues that can support this preferred lifestyle that I'm talking about. Susanna said, "You are superwoman and mama." Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm not. And that's also important too, again, to take that rest and to not feel so super. One thing that I wanted to touch on when I was discussing the negative paradigms is also having experiences with postpartum depression and anxiety, and how that played a role in such a tough and dark transition into really accepting this role of mother and accepting the role of just this new level of adulthood that I was not used to and also not fully prepared for. So that also played a huge role. And honestly, I think that's probably why I felt like I had to keep going, because that was just an avenue. For me, business can be an avenue of expression. And I think it was kind of a happy distraction. It gave me something to look forward to, because when you are experiencing postpartum depression, sometimes it's hard to find things to look forward to. Even though you have, a bundle of joy, I'm putting air quotes because it doesn't always feel like you have a bundle of joy, just being honest. Like when you go through motherhood for the first time, maybe for some people it is, but for a lot of people it's not. And not a lot of people talk about that. So those are, again, the different values and some of the struggles with making this transition. And now I want to go into this last portion, which is discussing how to actively achieve this balance that I'm talking about. So what are some of the things that I did? What are some of the things that I paid for? What are some of the things that, were completely free that I did to make sure I can achieve this balance? Let's see. So one of the things that I did in the beginning is actually getting some in-home sitters. So even when it was just me at home with the baby, I decided to go ahead and get some in-home sitters. So someone, a professional, come into the home while I'm home, just so I can lay down or just so I can catch up on some cleaning. Because what a lot of people don't realize, especially I feel like men, what they don't realize is even when you have a child, there's still other responsibilities, right? Like even having a household. So I didn't mention this before. So imagine me, I'm pregnant. I got my associate's degree. I finished my nursing prereqs. I did that with a 3.9 GPA. I'm building my business. I am preparing for labor and delivery. But I also, it kind of ran out of my head. And I was also trying to build my YouTube. But also I bought a house. So I bought my first home. Really, that happened a month after I had my baby. I actually found out, this is a funny story. I told y'all that there would be some stories in the midst of this, but I went into labor in a Target. Well, started to go into labor in a Target after we had just got a call saying that they accepted my offer for the house that I was looking at. And right after that, I went into labor, or pre-labor, as some people might call it. Paid the, the closing fees right after I gave birth, like literally the next day after I gave birth. I wrote that check to pay the closing fees and then moved into the house a month after I gave birth. So there was that. So I was navigating trying to purchase a home as a full-time business owner. That is a whole thing within itself. It was very difficult. It almost didn't happen because there's so many different aspects to proving, income. Even if you have a legitimate business and legitimate, bank accounts and like all that stuff, when you don't have a W-2 and you're full time in your business, it's just a whole different ballgame when it comes to trying to own a home. So that was happening too. And so let me get back on track here. So how to achieve balance. So I'm in the home and also have house responsibilities. There are certain things that have to be looked after, whether that's cleaning, cooking. I'm kind of in this traditional kind of setup where, I'm going to be doing a majority of the cleaning and like all this other stuff in addition to breastfeeding and things like that. So that's what my life was looking like. So we got some in-home sitters to help with that. So this person would come in and help with, just making sure the baby is occupied and, happy, smiling, while I could maybe catch up on some cleaning. They also did some like light organizing, which was really nice. But that's one of the ways that I started to achieve balance. It made me feel comfortable because, I could catch up on some emails or delegate my emails to someone else while, my baby's in the other room or in the living room, or, there were often times where I would be there because we always got the same sitter every time. And I would just be there like with her while I'm cooking something and all that stuff. So that was super, super helpful. Another thing that we explored when I was trying to find this balance is also hiring house cleaners, because I also realized that I couldn't really do it. And the house is not, this huge, house. It's very modest. But even just once in a while, so this is not like a consistent thing, but just once in a while, like having someone come in and organize things and put things in its place just to take that extra workload off, did wonders for my mental health and feeling like I'm getting a grip on life and on this huge transition that I went through. So this is not like a consistent thing, although it might be in the future, because as we all know, it can get pricey. But honestly, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. Another thing that I did trying to achieve this balance is accepting help. So accepting help from my mom, accepting help from, my other parents. It really, you'll realize that having a child can really bring family together, even if the family wasn't together before. So that's something that I am thankful for, seeing how other family members showed up for me in certain ways. I mean, it wasn't always like that, but whenever someone offered to help, I would let them help. Whether that's like my best friend coming in just to, just sit with the baby while I cut up on something or finish completing something, or wrote out my outline for my program, like all that stuff, it really does add up. I do remember sweet moments where people would bring meals to the house. So really just accept that help, and let people know that you are open to help. It is so funny how and some of you may relate to this, how some people will be like, oh, when are you going to have the next one? When are you going to have the next one? But had never once offered to babysit the one that I have. Not that anyone has to, no one's ever obligated. But it's just so funny that some people, especially if you don't have children, you don't realize how much goes into it, let alone talking about the next one. Like, that's something else. But yeah, the next thing that I did to help achieve balance, so some of the things I mentioned, have a monetary value tied to it. To help save time, I'm paying someone to come into the home and help. And then to help save time, having someone come into the home to clean up. And then I'm also accepting help. But the next thing was having limits. So having limits on my time, because now the concept of time is completely different. Now I'm doing my best to be on time to things, and I'm expecting that if I'm meeting with someone, they're on time as well, because now I don't have time to waste. Now I don't have time to waste, because after having a child, you just realize how limited your time feels, especially if you're still catching up with time management or you've never really had to be in charge of your time before. I started trying to wake up earlier and having limits for how late I would stay up, because, the body has a limit, the mind has a limit. I had to limit the type of content I was consuming, because that also plays a role in your mental health. Especially when it comes to mom guilt. One of the tips for mom guilt that I came across, I think this was on Instagram, was unfollowing the cookie cutter moms, like the moms that make everything look perfect, trying to unfollow those people, because you do not need to be seeing that if you are struggling, unless it just inspires you. But in some cases, it can make you feel bad or make you feel like you're not doing enough, or not engaging with people who may make you feel like you're not doing enough, or that you should be doing something differently. Because another thing that you realize when you become a parent is that everyone has their opinion on what they think you should be doing or not doing. And that is something that you have to learn to block out and be prepared to combat if you need to combat combat stuff like that. Yes. I'm seeing may have to invest in that. I'm sure you're referring to the home sitters or the house cleaners. It's overwhelming to do it yourself all the time. Yeah, absolutely. And you shouldn't have to do it yourself all the time if you can have ways to where other people can help you. Absolutely. And so just be open to accepting that help. So I just talked about having limits. So this is limits on my energy. This is limits on my, relationships with other people. It's limits on my time, limits for myself. Again, how much am I going to work? And, how, again, it just relates to time management. Another thing that I do now is focus time blocks. So there are times where I get so busy where I need to set focused time blocks where this time is the time where I am connecting with my son. There's no distractions. We're out doing something, doing an activity. No one else can come in on this time. Or, aside from that, there is this time where I have to create where, I'm connecting with my husband and not neglecting that relationship and vice versa, or connecting with a friend or connecting with myself. That is a huge thing. So now that I'm a mom, I honestly spend more time with myself, surprisingly, than I think I used to do before. I mean, I did it quite a bit before. Even when I was single, I spent, a lot of time with myself. But now it just means so much more now because I know what it feels like to have my time split between so many different people and having so many different people rely on me for what I do, for cleaning up, for cooking, for, spending time with the little one, things like that. So because my time is split between so many different responsibilities, I need focused time blocks for myself that no one else can impede upon. That is just for me. This is my time to be selfish. This is my time to give back to myself and recharge myself so that I can show up bigger and more, not bigger, recharge for other people. So that is something that is a non-negotiable, is having those times. And now what I'm working on is planning times where I can do absolutely nothing. Because remember when we looked up the definition of mom guilt, we saw that we can feel bad for just like doing nothing, for just, not having an agenda or not having things that we have to do for the day. And now I am working on planning days where I can do whatever I want or nothing at all. I can lay in the bed, which has always been just so difficult for me because we know that it can be associated with laziness or be associated with, just a future that maybe not so bright. There's so many ways to express that. And that's something that I've struggled with really my whole life. And now I'm learning to unlearn that and to give back to myself. And so that's something that I would recommend to you as well. Okay, so some of the ways that having my business, I believe, has made me, I wouldn't say a better mom. How would I put this? Just some of the benefits of having the flexibility of having a business and of building the business before I became a mother is the fact that I have more flexibility. If I had a 9-to-5 job, they may not be so understanding if I have to leave work because my child is sick or needs me. They may see me as a liability rather than I work for my business. I'm the owner, and now I can make sure that I am flexible with my time, flexible with my scheduling, and just making sure that, I'm never in a position to where I need to necessarily call out or anything like that. I think having that flexibility has, even helped my husband as well, someone who travels for work and, has his own responsibilities as well outside of the home. And so I'm able to step up and fill in for those times where, for example, if he has to be away. Another thing that I noticed, or something I've been feeling really grateful for, is the fact that I can really see all the milestones. So I can see all the milestones. I feel like some of the things that I've wanted to do, I've been able to accelerate. For example, teaching my child how to read. Like, he's 2.5. He can already read words. He can already spell. He can already, say his name, spell his name. He talks a lot for a 2.5-year-old. I've been potty training him since he was 3 months old, and he's been potty trained. It's still a little tricky, but potty trained since like 1.5 years old, which is usually unheard of, because most people, their time is spent in other ways, usually outside of the home. And so having that flexibility of being in the home and running my business has allowed me to be there for those milestones and give him a head start in a lot of different avenues, whether that's reading, writing, talking, potty training. And that has been something that I particularly feel really, really proud of. Again, it's not about milestones because every child is different. There's no point in like comparing. Every child will have their different ways. I'm sure if I had another one and I potty trained from 3 months, it could take them 4 years to really get it right. But because I have just this time where I can be home if I want to, it's easier for me. I mean, it's still difficult. Potty training is hard, but I can be there to make sure that, I can put him on the potty and make sure that, all that stuff is happening. So that's something I've really liked, is being able to give him a sense of independence. And that's been really, really, really rewarding, is seeing that like right before my eyes, giving him that head start. And then another thing is just like the little things, like being able to bake cupcakes on his birthday and bring it to his daycare, and like having the flexibility to even do that. Or even when it was just me and him at home, being able to go to the library and have like a full day of like doing stuff. Like, some people don't get that opportunity. So I do feel extremely grateful and glad that I spent the time to set up what I needed to set up. Glad that, I do have support. I know not everyone has support at home, which I do not take for granted at all. But regardless of where you are in your journey, just be really grateful for where you are, for where you're at, because someone else may not have those opportunities. So if you feel like you do want to run your business or create a business, really lean into that, because not everyone has the opportunity to do that. And just lean into your intuition as well. So I went through everything from start to finish. I think this is probably the most intimate conversation we've had on this live. And I'm happy to let you all know that we're going to be doing these lives more often. Starting, I want to say next week, we'll be going live twice a week. I am hosting a masterclass that's going to be December the 7th. So that's a Thursday at 7:30. And so in preparation of that training, I am going to be going live, answering your questions more, and discussing these topics, these really real topics, because this is real life. Not everyone is, a 7-figure business owner after, 3 months of working. It takes time. It takes a lot of energy. It takes learning. And if this is how I can support you, being live with you and just sharing my own experience, then that's something I will do, because I believe that everyone should experience, especially massage therapists. We work so hard to help other people feel relaxed and help them feel well. We need to experience that wellness as well. And one of the ways that we can experience that wellness is by making sure that we're getting paid, making sure that we're getting paid well and paying ourselves, because there just comes like a different level of not pride exactly, but accomplishment when you're able to do that and feel valued for the work that you do, by attaching your own value to the work that you do and not allowing someone else to, for example, set your rates. So so I will be hosting that masterclass. You will probably find the link to it in my bio very soon, officially by Thursday for sure. So you definitely want to look out for that. The masterclass is all about what I would do if I were starting my massage business in 2024 from scratch. 2024 from scratch, if I was starting over, this is step by step what I would want you to do. So we're going to be talking about pricing yourself. I'm going to be giving you demonstrations step by step to how you can set up your systems, the systems that I have for my business. And then we're also going to be talking about your marketing. So how you're going to market for your business in 2024 in a way that leverages your time without sacrificing your energy. So without sacrificing, your effort. So that's something that I'm super excited to be hosting for you all. It's absolutely free. So you're not going to pay anything to be in the room. You just want to make sure that you register. You want to make sure that you register. I definitely want to hear your takeaways in the comments of this video, even in the replay. I'm going to take a moment to shout out some of your comments before we close out for today. I'm seeing on YouTube, Love is Key says, this topic is so needed. I'm a mom of 4 working full-time and learning how to run my reflexology business. Trial and error is an understatement. Absolutely. Well, I definitely hope that you come to the masterclass because I'm going step by step so that it doesn't have to be trial and error, because it takes so much time. It takes so much time. Charisma Renee says, do you get massages? Yes. So something that I've been really adamant about, especially after having my baby, is getting massages on a regular basis. I kind of fell off more recently, but this whole year, 2023, I promise I've been doing them monthly, and that's been great. And now I'm trying to incorporate a quarterly facial in with my routine. Yes. Let's see. So on Facebook, if you're new to this live, if you comment on Facebook, I can't see your name. So sorry, I can't see your name. But this question says, speaking of financial, what's your advice on making financial decisions for your business while having a family? Example, deciding to rent a space while knowing it could be a gamble financially. That is a tough one. So I must say, and again, I can't see because I'm on a streaming service, I can't see like your face or your name. So I have to say I'm a little, not biased is not the word. Let me tell you my experience. So in my experience and how my family is set up, I always, talk to my husband about decisions like these. He's extremely, supportive of what I'm trying to do with my business. If I need to rent a space, like he's wanting to know the details, seeing how he can help, that type of thing. So I would say it's kind of like a group decision. Really talking avidly about talking about the pros and cons, what would happen. But something that's really important is making sure that you can make financial projections. Financial projections always helps me make financial decisions, and not only financial projections, but also financial projections from the past. So what has happened in the past financially in my business? Has business gone up and down? Does it fluctuate? Can I afford the rent? It's always going to be a gamble, but if you can look at the numbers and look at your financial history, then that can help you as well. Another thing that you can do is, if you know that it's a gamble or you know that it's a risk, and now I'm getting into some coaching, but that's okay. But if you know that it's a risk, you can set money aside from each, let's say, appointment that you do or each week of income that you have, and set money aside for rent and let that build up over time until you have multiple months of rent while you're paying for rent. So that is kind of like a cushion for you in the case of, let's say, we have another pandemic or things like that. But I definitely want to talk more about financial reserves because I believe that's really, really important for running your business. So if you all want to see a live on that, definitely let me know. Something also that I'm doing differently is if you all have questions and you comment them on this video or on, replays, I am saving all of those questions so that we can do regular Q&As. So if I don't answer your question right away, it's probably going to be answered in a video, a dedicated video, or a Q&A. So that's another thing that I'll be doing as well. But I know in our next live, I'm going to be talking about different ways that we can work together, different ways that I help other massage therapists, other spa professionals. There are some of you who are new to my page and may not be familiar with the work that I do and how I'm helping other spa professionals make a difference in their business and move the needle forward. So I'll be discussing that. But now that we're going to be going live twice a week, I need more ideas of topics that we need to cover. So definitely DM me on Instagram at Ayana True, or you can also comment on any video. But try to get in touch with me and let me know, what do you want me to talk about on these lives? Because, sometimes my creative juices run low at times. But I really appreciate all of you who stuck to the very end, and I really, truly, truly hope that this reached the right person and the message was received. Definitely give yourself grace if you are a mom or a father doing this and trying to run your business. Even if you don't have a business and you're working at a spa or a clinic, give yourself grace, because just by having your child, that in itself is a full-time job, and you need to give yourself credit for that. That is something, honestly, probably the most difficult thing anyone could ever go through. And I'll leave y'all with this last fun fact is that whenever I feel scared about doing something, all I have to do is remind myself that I gave birth, so I can literally do anything. Like even skylining in Mexico, where you're like hundreds of feet above ground. I felt really scared because I'm afraid of heights, but I literally reminded myself that, hey, like I have a son, I gave birth, like I can, and I did naturally too. That, not to discard other people who may not have done it naturally or have used, other, pain meds, but like that to me is just a different level of fearlessness, is going into something like that. So that's something that I do, is just remind myself, okay, I gave birth, I can literally do anything. So what am I really afraid of? Yes. So let's start facing our mom guilt together and talking about it more openly. We all experience it. And I definitely hope that you all have a great night, and I will see y'all in the next live.